And Councilman Bolden will open with a prayer.
Thank you, Mayor. Let us bow for a moment of prayer. Father, we thank you for the gift of today and for your grace and mercy in each new day. Father, we invite you to preside over this meeting. Even if we have different opinions, give us unity of spirit. Help us to listen each other as we share our point of view. Help us to work as a unified team and combining ideas for great outcome. Help us to work as a whole rather than an individual. Give us the spirit to work together on our shared mission. Guard our hearts broken with pain at the senseless deaths caused by gun violence each and every day. We should not have to live our lives in daily fear of any type of violence. Turn us away from violence towards peace. We ask this in the name of God, who desires that we live together in peace. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Bolden. I'll call the meeting to order. If you'll stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll move right into the election, and A will canvass results of the May 7, 2022 City Council regular election and consider adopting a resolution declaring the results. City Secretary.
Hey, good evening. I'm Jan Vinson, City Secretary, and tonight I'm gonna read the election results into record. We'll look at those and decide, and once you all have had an opportunity to look at them, which I gave them to you early, so you should have had a time to review them, but then we'll look at approving the resolution declaring the results. So first I'm going to start with Southeast Ward, and I'm just going to read through the election results. There are 4,134 registered voters in the Southeast Ward. Ben Sullivan received 30 absentee votes, 42 early votes, 54 election day votes, with a total of 126. That is 43.15% of the vote. Roy Bolden received 56 absentee votes, 85 early votes, 25 election day votes, total 166 with 56.85% of the vote, and that is the majority of the votes, so that puts Mr. Bolden with the majority of the votes for the Southeast Ward Council member. In the Southwest Ward, there are 3,528 registered voters. Jay Anderson received 7 absentee votes, 33 early votes, 16 election day votes, with a total of 56, which is 16.14% of the vote. Donald Lacey received 18 absentee votes, 40 early votes, 14 election day votes, 72 total votes, which is 20.75% of the vote. And Chad Huckabee received 15 absentee votes, 146 early votes, 58 election day votes, with a total of 219 votes, 63.11% of the vote, making Mr. Huckabee receiving the majority of the votes for the Southwest Ward City Council member. And I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions? Do I have a motion to adopt a resolution?
So move.
Councilman? Second. Okay. Any further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, we'll move to B, administer statement of oath of officer and oath of office for newly elected council members. City Secretary.
All right, I'm going to start with Mr. Bolden. Mr. Bolden, if you'll join me down here, please. Let's start with the statement of officer, and if you'll just repeat after me.
Okay.
I, Roy Bolden,
I, Roy Bolden,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I have not directly or indirectly
I have not directly or indirectly
paid,
paid,
offered,
offered,
promised to pay,
promised to pay,
contributed,
contributed,
or promised to contribute
or promised to contribute
any money
any money
or things of value,
or things of value,
or promised any public office
or
or promised
promise any public office
or employment for the giving
or employment for the giving
or withholding
or withholding
of a vote
of a vote
at election
at election
at which I was elected
at which I was elected
or as a reward
or as a reward
to secure my
to secure
Appointment.
my appointment
or confirmation,
or confirmation,
whichever the case may be,
whichever the case may be.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Now the oath of office. You get to repeat after me one more time. I, Roy Bolden,
I, Roy Bolden,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
execute the duties
execute the duties
of the office of
the office of
Councilmember Southeast Ward
Councilmember Southeast Ward
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve,
preserve,
protect,
protect,
and defend
and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and laws
and laws
of the United States,
of the United States,
of this state,
of this state.
so help me God.
So help me God.
I'm gonna let you sign this right here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bolden.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Chad Huckabee? All right, Chad, we're gonna start with a statement of officer. I know it's a lot of words, and I'll try not to say too many at one time.
I'm just glad that Mr. Bolden got to go first, so I could hear them again.
I, Chad Huckabee,
I, Chad Huckabee,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I have not,
that I have not,
directly or indirectly,
directly or indirectly,
paid,
paid,
offered,
offered,
promised to pay,
promised to pay,
contributed,
contributed,
or promised to contribute
or promised to contribute
any money
any money
or things of value,
or things of value,
or promised any
or promised any
public office
public office
or employment
or employment
for the giving
for the giving
or withholding
or withholding
of a vote
of a vote
at election
at election
at which I was elected,
at which I was elected,
or as a reward
or as a reward
to secure my appointment
to secure my appointment
or confirmation,
or confirmation,
whichever the case may be,
whichever the case may be.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Yeah. And then the oath of office. You are so cute. I'm trying to look at this, and I keep looking at him. Okay, I, Chad Huckabee,
I, Chad Huckabee,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
execute the duties
execute the duties
of the office
of the office
of council member,
of council member,
Southwest Ward
Southwest Ward
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will to the best of my ability
preserve,
preserve,
protect,
protect,
and defend
and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and laws
and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state.
so help me God.
So help me God.
All right. If you could just slide that right there for me. Right there. All right, and you can take your seat over there. Congratulations.
Yeah, sure. He's like, I don't know why I can't stay with my dad.
Okay, we will move on to open forum. Open forum is an opportunity for citizens to speak about items not listed on the agenda. In order to address the city council, please complete the open forum form and submit it to the city secretary. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, city council shall not discuss, deliberate, or making decisions on items discussed in open forum. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. We are gonna deviate from our typical rules a little bit tonight. I announced it earlier. I know that some of you here tonight are interested in the executive session, which is at the end of the meeting, and the action from that session won't be taken until after executive session. So if you would rather not stay and speak at that time, which you're certainly welcome to, we would welcome you to speak during open forum. And I have a few people who have already signed up to speak, but if there are others, there should be slips at the back where you can sign up to speak at open forum to that particular issue or for anything that's not on the agenda. So thank you for that. And with that, we will begin. Actually, the first one is Barbara Nidis from United States Small Business Administration.
Hi, good evening. So I'm just going to be very quick about the, I'm here basically for the disaster that happened on March 21st. It's an agency declaration. So everybody who had suffered during that time, homeowners, renters, nonprofit organizations, including places of worship, and businesses of all sizes are able to apply. So it's Nacogdoches County and all the surrounding counties. So for homeowners, we offer up to $200,000, and that's to repair, replace real estate and property. As far as we offer up to $40,000 for personal property, anything that's inside the home, and that's also including your primary car has to be your primary residence. It can't be secondary car or secondary residence. So, we offer up to $2 million for businesses, also to repair, replace physical damage, and up to $2 million for working capital loan, which is economic injury disaster loan. That is just if you were closed during that timeline of March 21st, you at least regain your business back. And this also goes for nonprofits. They also get that same option, up to $2 million for physical damage, and also, again, the economic injury disaster loan. To apply, these are low-interest government loans. For physical damage is July 5th, the deadline of 2022. And for economic injury disaster loans, it's February 6th of next year. So if people do need that for businesses and nonprofits. For home loans, it's as low as 1.43%. For businesses, as low as 2.94%. And nonprofits, it's 1.87%. These are up to 30 years. We do offer mitigation improvements. That's additional funding for that. And also relocation. So we cover deductibles and no closing costs on these loans. And this is for uninsured and underinsured losses, which we saw in Cushing. There's still a lot of people have suffering over there, devastation. So that's why we're here to cover, at least cover, that's why I'm here today, to cover everybody who did suffer even and anywhere else. So as far as that, people can go to the Disaster Loan Outreach Center. It's at 783 Walnut Avenue. It's the Cushing Volunteer Department. It's 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., Monday through Friday, but we're closing May 26th. So anybody does not need that one-on-one assistance, they can get that there. And then after that, they can just apply a disaster loan. Well, they can still apply a disaster loan assistance.sba.gov. And they also have a 1-800 number at 1-800-659-2955. If you have any other questions from me.
Okay.
We're good?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, thank
and
you.
we do appreciate the contact information, and
Yeah.
certainly the council has it, and the staff has it at the city. And so
That's
if
good.
anyone's interested and don't get with, and you're not able to get with Ms. Nidis tonight, then we'll have it here at the city. So
I just wanted to mention this one point. The loan becomes an option, so that's why I suggest everybody to apply. You do not have to accept the loan at the end of the day. You just see your options. That's very important. So, thank you.
Thank
Have a good
you.
one. Thank you for having me.
Okay, next, I have Mary Roan.
My name is Mary Roan. I live at 700 Northwood Circle. And my husband and I have lived in Nacogdoches County and in Nacogdoches since 1975, with the exception of about 2, maybe 3 years. We've had a business in this town for many, many years. I worked in this town for many, many years, and we currently live on Northwood Circle, and we've been there since 2016. The first city manager that I remember was J.T. Alders. Some of you may not know him. The first chief of police I remember that I can think of was John Walton. And I know there was someone before that. But in my time here in Nacogdoches, I've seen Nacogdoches do some pretty cotton-picking foolish things. and I'm not going to get into those. But we have had for the past 16 years, under Jim Seavey, an excellent chief of police. Our streets have been safe. Our businesses have been safe. We survived, heaven forbid, Black Lives Matter. We have survived, heaven forbid, the stuff that happens at SFA with those students. I have a dog in this fight. I've got skin in this game, just like everybody that lives in this town has. You people work for us, as do the city manager and the city attorney and the city secretary and the police force and everyone else. And what has happened with Chief Seavey is unconscionable. It is unconscionable that a man that has served so faithfully and built our police force. Have you ever done a ride around? I have seen the underbelly of Nacogdoches, and we've got an underbelly. I have watched our police department grow, and I have, as a watch captain for the largest neighborhood watch in this town, I have seen what he has done to build that police department. And what is happening with him is absolutely unconscionable, and I do not know why you've quit working for the city of Nacogdoches, but you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roan. Okay, the next we have is Brad Mall.
Hi, I'm Brad Mall, 735 North Mound. First of all, I want to congratulate all the people that won, and I think it's a joyful day for that. It's a sorrowful one for Chief Seavey and his wife, because I've lived here 17 years, and he's just a good man, and I don't think people change over time. He was always good for the city. He's good for right now. It's been rumored, or sort of an open secret, for the last 2 years that certain people wanted to change the police chief. And to see it happen is really heartbreaking to me, especially the way it was taken, the action that was taken for him. Nacogdoches is a gentle city. It is a kind city for the most part, and I know that when people have been on the job for a long time and it's time for them to move on, especially after 16 years, that people here give allowances for, okay, maybe they're in bad health, but they let them go out with dignity when they're sort of ready to, not when they're thrown out. And that's what I fear so much. 2 years ago, something changed. National politics filtered down into our small, beautiful town. And I think this is a chance for us to step back from that, to remake your decision today, and to bring Nacogdoches back to the kind, compassionate town that it was 3 years ago before COVID happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mall. Okay, we will move on to the consent agenda. Are there items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Get a paper copy of the agenda. I'm sorry, I didn't have one.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
if
sir.
I could, I would like to remove item 6A from the consent agenda.
Okay.
And I would like to move that we postpone consideration of approval of the minutes from the previous meeting until after item item 8.
Okay. That works. Do I have a motion to that effect,
So moved.
and that the others be approved?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. All right, we'll move on to number 7, regular agenda. A receiver report, hold a discussion and give staff direction on delinquent tax collections and management of property struck off at foreclosure sales. City manager.
Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Huckabee, congratulations.
Thank you.
Just wanted to give a quick introductory comments. We have Patrick Woods here. He's with the law firm of Purdue Brandon. They are the firm that works directly with the appraisal district to do delinquent tax collections. From time to time, it's my understanding that the firm goes around to the different taxing entities, just give a report. And he'd like to do that for the city council, just to kind of give an update on where things are with tax collections and delinquencies. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Woods.
Mr. Mize, council, we appreciate you having us. Thank you very much. Good to see familiar faces. We do have paper copies as well as the presentation here. We're going to keep this brief, I promise. So just to give you a quick refresher, Purdue, Brandon, Fielder, Collins, and Mott, we collect delinquent property taxes, and we do so here in conjunction with the appraisal district. And we have a long history of experience and reputation. We perform this task for you at a high level. We want to tell you about some of the good work that we've been doing. So I'd like to introduce some of my team here. Again, I'm Patrick Woods. I'm the partner in the Tyler office, and I control the Tyler office day to day. But of course, I have a boss, and I brought my boss here, and it's Doug Burnside. And Doug is our managing partner. He manages the Tyler, the Garland office, and of course, our office here in Nacogdoches as well. Council, Purdue Brandon has been doing this for 52 years, and we do a great job with rural and medium-sized school districts, counties, and cities, and that's primarily who we work for. We have 14 offices throughout the state of Texas, 58 licensed attorneys, and about a support staff of about 400 folks in all of those offices. What we really enjoy working about Nacogdoches is we love working inside the appraisal district, and we get to work with every city inside the county, every school district inside the county, and of course we work with the county itself. What we do when we collect our delinquent property taxes, just as a refresher, is we take a very personalized and custom approach to your delinquent tax roll. We reach out to your delinquent taxpayers. We're very compassionate when we discuss these matters with them. It can be a sensitive matter. So we send letters, we make phone calls, and always on behalf of the city, we are very, very professional in everything we do in trying to collect your delinquent property taxes. The delinquent tax roll that we get, Doug and I, and as well as my other staff, Maria Sutterfield, could you say hi? Maria is our in-person paralegal in the Nacogdoches office, and Haley Davis as well. They deal with your taxpayers that come into our office, and we try to find a way to work out each and every scenario with them. And that strategic litigation plan can often be trying to work the turnover that we get that year. We really try to hammer away at collecting your delinquent taxes for that year and that turnover only. Every time that there is a business that we may see go delinquent, we try to make a visit. Okay, you're going to see us on site in the city trying to make a visit to these businesses and talk to them about whatever issues they may have with their taxes. And of course, we are in bankruptcy court for you. Anytime we see a delinquency on behalf of the city, we file into bankruptcy court. I'll go to bankruptcy court in Tyler for you in the federal bankruptcy court there to make sure that we can get you paid to whatever extent we possibly can. Of course, we have our office in the Nacogdoches Central Appraisal District, and we see taxpayers there a lot. As I said before, it's a convenience for your taxpayers to go and see Maria or to meet with an attorney. They're always welcome to speak to an attorney anytime they would like to. And we are a resource for the appraisal district. We handle the general litigation, and we serve as general counsel for the appraisal district as well. We help them with a number of matters that don't affect delinquent property taxes, but of course we're there, and we're always an aid to Jason Malott, our great chief appraiser there. Of course, look, our reputation in the industry is stellar. You know, we're honest, we have a lot of integrity, we perform everything that we do with a lot of ethics. And so you can rest assured that the council that you have for the city doing this does a really good job. And we always remember that we represent the city. And I'm going to turn it over to Doug, and we're going to talk some numbers. And these are important numbers, we think, and we think we've done a good job so far.
All right, now that Patrick has kind of given you a little introduction to our firm and to what we do and how we do it for you, we want to talk about the results that we received. In our tax collection cycle, taxes get turned over to us essentially on July 1st of each year. So we're getting prepared right now for your 2021 taxes to be turned over to us for collections. But in the meantime, you know, so our tax collection cycle runs from July 1 to June 30th. So what we've got here is we are providing our last complete collection cycle, which was the 2019 tax year, which would be from July 1, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. And in that cycle, for the turnover year, which is the most recent tax year, in this case was the 2019 tax year, we collected just under 61% of those taxes that were turned over to us. The second component of our taxes is your all years delinquent tax roll. So that's all of the taxes on your delinquent tax roll. So that's, you know, and the taxes go back 20 years essentially. And so for that verse, for everything else, we collected it at 42%. So that's pretty solid numbers. You know, there's a lot, as I'm going to show you in a slide later, what your delinquent tax roll looks like right now, and we're going to break it down by the types of accounts. But for that tax collection cycle is 42. Right now, we're in the middle of a tax collection cycle, and we have data through March 31st. And so for our turnover year, which is the 2020 tax year, we're at 53.95% so far. So we want to hit into the 60s for the turnover year, and we're on pace to do that and shouldn't really have an issue doing that. And for the all years, we're at 33.77. We want to get up into the 40% range for the all years collection because we don't want your tax roll to keep growing. If you can see from it was 720,000 on July 1 of 2020, but this year was only 654,000. So it's actually a good trend. And so what we're hoping is that it'll continue to go down, which means A, your taxpayers are doing a good job of getting it paid before we ever come into the scene. And then B, you know, we're working to keep that roll from growing, which is very important. So we talked about what does your tax roll look like right now, and this is as of May 5th. One of the key things that we look at this is the in deferral portion of it. And a tax deferral is for people who are over 65 and it's their homestead, or they're disabled and it's their homestead. And they're eligible to get what's called a tax deferral. And we actually can't do anything for collecting on that. And so that's 16% of the roll that's remaining right now. We can't legally do anything with. We currently have about 35% of your roll in litigation, and about 38% of it we're getting towards litigation on it. You know, this is an interesting chart because the better job we do, the more we collect, the bigger percentage of the pre-litigation comes in, whereas the litigation part shrinks because that's usually where we're going to make a lot of time. At this time of year, that's where we're going to make a lot of progress is through the litigation. So once you get paid, it actually falls off this chart. And so what have we been doing for you? How have we achieved our collection statistics? So for the last 2 years, for the calendar year 2021, we filed 69 lawsuits on behalf of the city. We posted 11 properties for sale. Of those 11, 7 were paid, 2 were sold, and 2 were struck off to the city. Last year, we also resold 7 properties on behalf of the city. And what that means is at our tax sales, you have a minimum bid to where it's either the total amount of the judgment or the appraised value of the property, whichever is less. And if no one bids that amount, then it gets what's called struck off to the taxing entity, meaning the city becomes the owner on behalf of the other taxing entities. And then we attempt to resell it. And I think we're going to talk some more about tax struck off properties and resales and warrants and stuff here in just a little bit. But so far in 2022, we filed 24 petitions. We've posted 3 properties for sale. One of them was sold, and we canceled 2 other sales. And we also have our next sale date is coming up next month, so June 7th. So those numbers will increase. We typically do 4 sales a year. All right. Do we have any questions regarding the delinquent tax collections? Can I clear anything up? I know a lot of this is probably the first time you've heard a lot of these terms, and you know they're natural to us. But if anyone has any questions. Okay.
Yep. Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Ms. Fisher, please.
Okay, yes. Just a question, you were talking about pre-litigation and litigation. My
Yes.
question is, what steps do you guys take prior to
Sure.
to hitting those?
We have, that's a really good question, actually. I meant to say this, but there are 2 types of collections that we do. There's the soft collections and the hard collections. Soft collections is going to be letters, phone calls, visits to the businesses for the business person property taxes. And so those are the soft collections. That's the steps that we take initially. if we, keeping lines of communications open with the taxpayers, what we really try to do, because that's how we're gonna get them paid. But there are some accounts, a lot of accounts that we're not gonna get paid that way, so we have to go into what's called hard collections, which is then the litigation. So pre-litigation, we're doing research on the accounts, we're skip tracing, we're trying to find people, we're making phone calls, we send out at least 3 sets of letters, and that's what the pre-litigation is.
Okay, thank you.
And bear in mind, Ms. Fisher, too, if we have to file a lawsuit, it's because we have failed at everything else. I mean, people can get on payment plans, we're happy to do that. We're happy to communicate with the taxpayer however we can, but they're just refusing or unable to meet some of the obligations.
And while we do talk about tax sales and selling people's property, our firm, I kind of view it as us selling someone's property is a failure in our collection process. Because, we value people's property rights, and, we try to do everything we can to help them get them paid prior to us having to take the ultimate action that we could take.
And in the letters, sorry, quick follow-up question
That's
that you just, the letters, the phone calls, you guys make it known that there are payment plans and that there's flexibility and, okay.
Absolutely. There's a variety of payment plans that are available to them. Especially there's some that are required under the tax code for homestead property. So yes, we do try to avail ourselves of that. If we can get someone to pay it without us having to, going through a lawsuit, that's added expense to it, and it's a lot more work than it is to get someone on the phone and get them in a payment plan. So we're gonna try and collect as much as we can without having to file a lawsuit.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep, I'm good.
Mr. Bolden?
Yes, thank you. You threw me off with one statement, and I'll come back to it in just a minute. But just a question. Delinquent tax collections, the numbers you gave us tonight, is that for all parties involved, the NISD, or just the city?
This is just the city's portion, yes, sir.
All right. You said turned over to us. Is you only get involved in what the district, appraisal district give you?
Yes.
For a property?
Yeah, only taxes that once if it's not collected, then on July 1, the taxes are what's called turned over to us, to where then we're given the accounts, and that's when we start our collection activity on it.
And the reason why I was asking that is because I'm a trustee at the church.
Okay.
And we was going through an expansion. But in order to expand, we needed additional parking spaces. So there was 2 properties behind the church that we were going to purchase. Now, one of them had not paid taxes in 11 years.
Okay.
But that information was being sent to Kilgore, Texas. The people that owned the property lived in Houston, so we could understand that. But the other property had maybe 5 or 6 years delinquency in taxes. Now, the property wasn't that valuable in that area. So do you go after those with that in mind, that value versus cost to?
Well, as far as initiating litigation, going to sale process, is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
There are a couple factors that we go through. One of it we look at is obviously we're going to go after the biggest dollar accounts first, because that's where we're going to make the most impact for the city and generate the most revenue for you. But once they start to have multiple years on them, we're going to proceed after those also. Now, I don't know how much those lots were worth, but sometimes you can have 10 or 11 years of taxes and only have a few $100s owed.
Yeah.
And so filing a lawsuit on it and going to foreclosure sale is going to cost at least $1,500 to $2,000. And it's sometimes counterproductive for the taxpayers for us to do that, as opposed to, but eventually we'll be able to get it. And then we're also going to have a discussion here a little bit about abandoned properties and tools that are available to us that we might start implementing.
Eventually, we got the right parties involved that own the property.
Very good.
We paid off the taxes and gave them several $100s and walked away.
Yes, sir.
We paid more than what the property was worth, in other words. But,
Understood.
yeah. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm interested in the numbers and the percent of the taxes that are in deferral.
Okay.
And those are older people over 65, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
How many people is that?
I don't know the number of accounts on that, but we can find that information out and get it to you.
I'm just roughly kind of.
Because I have that in the A report, but
Yeah, we can definitely.
I don't look at the number of accounts that that is. Sure.
Partly because I'm very concerned with the taxes for people over 65 and those disabled. And I would like at this time to make sure we put that on our council agenda either at the end of June or early July, that we have a discussion about freezing taxes for people over 65 or those disabled.
You know, the deferral is one tool that those classes of individuals have to where they can help protect their property, to where they, you know, it's one less thing for them to have to worry about.
Well, I've seen people have sat on my porch and cried, trying to decide what they were going to do about their homes. They're losing their homes because of higher taxes. So I think we, as a city, need to address that.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, if
Sure.
I may
Yes,
comment, and add on to Dr. Bellinger's point, I really agree with the need for us to consider freezing taxes for those 65 plus and disabled. I have to say, before I was even sworn in, I received an email from a constituent that was very concerned with her fixed income on Social Security, that she's going to have to make a choice between keeping her property and paying her bills and having food. So I'm very passionate about that.
You know, if you know, if you can forward her to us, to where we can help her, or forward her to the appraisal district so she can make sure that she has the deferral on her property. And then we can go through and let her know what the steps are for that, and then what that deferral means, and how she doesn't have to make that decision. Because once she gets her taxes deferred, she's not gonna lose her home for taxes.
Very good.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I'll reinforce what Doug said, you know, getting the information and the education out to the citizens, having them go down to the appraisal district, see what options are available to them, you know, you can work something out down there.
And if you could send us the wording for that, I would be happy to post that on, you know, on my communications.
Okay.
Because there are people who are, and particularly now, who are very worried about their.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very
Yes,
much.
ma'am, sure.
If that could be provided to the whole council, please.
Okay, certainly.
Thank you.
Anybody else? We appreciate the information. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you all.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll be here.
We'll move to B, receive a report, hold a discussion, and give staff direction on implementing a tax warrant program. City
Can-
Attorney.
Can I just say, would you please, I do want that on an agenda at the end of June or early
Certainly.
July. I just want to make sure I got that. Sorry about that, sir.
It's all right. I noted it in my head, and I saw Jan writing, so
Thank you.
I think, I think we have it covered. Council, we had talked at a meeting several months ago about the code enforcement issues and how a number of properties where we have code enforcement, continuing code enforcement problems are also properties that are tax delinquent. And we talked and discussed at that time how many of those had been tax delinquent for an extended period of time. There is a process in the tax statute that allows us to expedite the foreclosure process for properties that qualify as abandoned. Abandonment means the value of the property as registered by the appraisal district is less than the amount of money owed on the taxes and city liens that have been placed against it. If it's less than an acre in size inside the city limits, we can do a process known as a tax warrant procedure, which is expedites the lawsuit, well, the foreclosure, I think is the proper way to say that. Am I stepping in it right? Good. So it expedites the foreclosure process by alleviating the filing of a petition and personal service on the purported owners. Many of these properties, the purported owners are, name on the property is someone who has long died, and the heirs have gone 6 different ways. They can't either they can't agree, they don't care, they recognize that it's not worth the taxes in terms of the dollars, so they just leave it be. And getting a hold of that property through the lawsuit process is extremely cumbersome and expensive. So we have this abbreviated process, and we are going to begin implementing that process for properties that qualify as abandoned. So abandoned, by the way, also means there's nobody living there. So there's nobody on the property and there's nobody doing anything to exercise ownership duties, like mowing the lawn, which is why they become a code enforcement issue. So we're going to start that process, and that's going to up the number of properties that are going to foreclosure, but it will also up the number of properties that get recirculated back into the economy. And Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong, but most properties that are sold at a tax sale end up being sold to someone in the neighborhood, and they're buying it because they're tired of looking at it. This will get that process expedited so those folks can start cleaning their neighborhoods up. So we're going to start that process now, and these guys will be the ones that are going through the process with us. There's an affidavit, and we'll be educating our judges on how that process goes, and we'll also be educating our colleagues in the tax collection world, the school district and the county, and that's going to be starting now. The second thing we had talked about when we talked about that was possibly using these properties as a seed for a land bank, which we could then use for either economic development or affordable housing purposes. Unfortunately, the statutes do not work together. If you go through the tax warrant process, then you cannot put the property in the land bank. You have to go through the full foreclosure process to do that. So that creates a problem. The second thing is the land bank statutes have timelines in them that I don't believe we as a city are ready to meet. When you put a property in the land bank, you have 3 years to come up with a plan and get it out. We don't have a housing department. We don't have people drafting housing plans. And the folks that have been working on that are doing it as part of their other jobs. We would need to staff up and come to you with a staffing plan to run a program. And we don't have that for you to do. So I'm not prepared at this point to say, let's create a land bank with these properties, because it doesn't work. And I'm also not prepared to tell you, let's hold off on doing these properties because we have so much work to do in order to be ready to do a land bank. So those are the two pieces. There's a third piece that I will bring to you is that we will be signing on with it's the Texas Communities Group. Am I right, Patrick? It's called TCG, which is an enhanced marketing program for properties that get struck off to the taxing entity. So when you go to a foreclosure, if nobody bids an amount that pays the taxes and the liens that are due on it, then the property will be struck off to the taxing unit, and we manage it in trust for everybody else, which means we got to figure out some way to sell it. The TCG program is an enhanced marketing program that puts it into essentially a database that is searchable from near and far, kind of like your realtor databases that you all go for, that you may go to check out on purchasing your houses or other properties. This is a tax foreclosed property database that allows folks to get ready access to what's available. And so it'll be an enhanced marketing program. So we'll be joining that, and that will be starting, I think we can get that one done probably this week. So, and that's the end of my presentation. I asked to be with these guys because they're here to correct me if I misstated it, and they're going to be doing all the work, so I wanted them to hear what I told you they were going to do.
Okay. Any comments from council? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, go
Do you
ahead.
want me to start?
Yes, please.
Okay, that's really disappointing about the land bank. I know you can't do anything about it, but that stinks.
I didn't write the statute.
I know you didn't. So, over 2 years ago, some issue came before city council, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but I was talking to a constituent about it, and she made a comment about, I couldn't remember exactly what she called it, so I got on Google and started looking up, trying to figure out what it was she said. And I think what it is this thing called heirs property, which is when a person, a homeowner passes away without a will, and then so the house gets passed down to the generation, and then from there another generation, until you get to a point where you don't know who the owner is. You don't know, nobody has the title. Sometimes the owners don't actually know that they're the owners of that property.
Correct.
And so I, for some reason, in preparing for this particular item, that came to my brain, and in doing a little bit of reading on it, it turns out that it is, according to the government, the leading cause of Black involuntary land loss in the nation. And so I am concerned, given that it disproportionately affects the Black community. I'm concerned, I guess, with the intersection between this tax warrant program that we're talking about and heirs property and how it would work if there are multiple owners of a property, some of whom don't even know they actually own the property, right? And we're talking about speeding up this foreclosure process. I'm just wondering about the intersection of those two things, and was hoping that you could.
So the title work that gets done for this process versus the title work that gets done for the foreclosure process is the same. So if the heirs can be located, they will be. And if the heirs will respond to communications, then they will be engaged. The distinction between the contacts is that once the lawsuit is filed, you have to actually have personal service, which means the constable shows up at somebody's house and hands them the piece of paper saying that's happened, that you've got to deal with this. In this process, that's not required. The tax bills that have been sent serve as the notice. But to get to that point, we've already done all the title work. So we've had somebody reaching out and trying to find the heirs. The statistics that you mentioned are troubling, and I don't know a way to fix that I don't know a way to fix that.
I guess simply stated, I don't want this tax warrant program to contribute to that problem.
So the tax warrant program will not contribute to that problem because the properties are already delinquent and they are slated for the path to get to foreclosure.
Okay.
So you're not, you're just speeding that process up because they've been delinquent, and they have to be delinquent for 5 years unless there's a lien on it for code enforcement violation, and then it's 3 years. So you're getting those properties to a title state that the neighborhood can then the people in the neighborhood can then take that property and clean it up so that they can live in that neighborhood comfortably. So you are, yes, you're taking you're using the warrant to collect someone's property that hasn't been managing it in a responsible way and putting it in a state for folks who will manage it in a responsible way to step in and do that. The issue with heirs and heirs property, and we dealt with this when I was district judge in Houston, that was a third of my docket was tax foreclosures, and the cases that didn't move were the ones that didn't have the heirs cleared up. And you would go year after year, and you would have some cases, there were 10 years of taxes in one lawsuit before they finally got enough impetus in finding heirs or locating heirs or getting them declared missing that we could then go ahead and foreclose and move that property. The way to solve that would be get everybody to sign wills, but.
If I can add one more issue on this, yes, that is a concern. However, these properties, one of the aspects of these properties is that what's owed against them is more than the property is worth. And so the people are not losing generational wealth, they're actually losing generational debt. And when we go through a tax warrant process, the heirs don't have any personal liability for it. And if we have a deficit on what we sell the property for, their personal liability is absolved through this process. If we go through a judicial foreclosure process, the heirs can have personal liability on it, to where they could, even after they lose the property, it might take 4 or 5 more years, they could still owe additional money. We would have a personal judgment against them that they'd still have the obligation for. So that's, that's an aspect that's, I understand your point because it's very problematic, but they're not losing actual net value on these properties, what they're going through the tax warrant process.
Right, but they're losing their home. I mean.
Well,
if they were there, they would not be losing their home.
I
That
mean,
would be a
these are
different
abandoned
process.
properties. I mean, part of it is that they have to be abandoned, there's no acts of ownership being performed on them. And so it's empty. I'm gonna guess most of them that we go through aren't gonna have actual homes on them, it's just gonna be the land.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for that, yeah.
So then my follow-up question, I would be interested to hear about the process that is gone through in order to try to locate heirs. And that doesn't have to be now, but I would like to know how thorough that is.
Do you have
I can speak to that.
Speak
So
to that now? Okay.
The title process that we go through for these tax warrants is very similar. It is the exact same title process we go to if we were gonna file a traditional tax foreclosure lawsuit. And that means that we have, abstractors take a look at these, and if we're talking about airship property, I mean, we will reach out through skip tracing softwares, through IDACORP software, we will reach out and try to find people across the country, really. And we have a title report that is pages long. We will locate you, and we will do the very best we can, because we have to sign off on an affidavit in front of Judge Davis down at District Court saying that we did it. And we take that very seriously. So when we do our title research, these are abstractors that are experienced, these are landmen that work for former oil and gas companies. So we will try the very best that we can to locate these folks, because we have to do the same steps here that we would in a regular tax suit. And we are held to the same standard in district court.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, absolutely. And I want to add too, you know, this program, we see it as kind of an urban renewal program. And our number one goal for the city is to get these properties back on your tax roll where they are generating some revenue for the city. I don't want to take anybody's home. I genuinely don't. But we are talking about substandard structures, homes that are falling in, where the value is so low and the delinquencies are so high that nobody's living there, right? These are substandard structures. These are abandoned lots. And so many times we see in these neighborhoods where we see these, it's the neighbor next door who is tired of looking at it that comes down to the tax sale and purchases it. And that's how you get people involved in taking back their neighborhoods. And I've seen that in a few cities, and I think that it could work here. I don't want to pick on anybody in a certain section of town, but I do want to help revitalize and clean up some of these properties.
Thank you.
So.
Mr. Huckabee, you have something? Okay.
Well, so that brings to my question here. We have two organizations, nonprofit organizations in town that are interested in helping neighborhoods. And one of the biggest problems is this insane title. I mean, it would cost way too much for anybody to really straighten out the title, and that's why some of these properties are abandoned. What is the role of nonprofits? Do you see a role that nonprofits could have in actually maybe the city giving these properties to nonprofits
So
after this?
That's a
or-
whole different set of statutes that we have to work through, and that would involve an interlocal agreement with the school district and the county where we set up an affordable housing program to take struck-off properties or other properties that we own and contribute them to the program at below market cost, market price. But in order to do that, we have to have a program, and we have to have someone to run the program, which means we also gonna have the timelines
Well-
that come into play.
Do you have the same timelines that are?
If we do it outside of a land bank, no, but if we do it in a land bank, yes. We do have to have the concurrence of the other taxing entities, and we have to have a program to sell them on. And that's another step that we can do, and we'll come up with a plan for you on that. I mean,
Yeah, let's do.
that
I mean,
hasn't gone
really-
away, and either my pile of things to do or the other folks' pile of things to do. We know we have that program to come up with.
Right, okay, so I think that it's very doable to help these structures that are falling in to actually keep them as homes before they get, I mean, some of them are still salvageable, you know, and to keep those particular properties and to repair them and rebuild them and make them usable housing and renew a neighborhood at the same time. So that's my 2 cents on that, and I would love to see more, and I know you have several people who would be happy to collaborate with you on that.
Well, as you know, I'm big on those kinds of programs. We need programmatic help to get there, but we'll get there,
Let's do it.
yeah.
Well, anything?
Just one comment. You mentioned that abandoned properties, that neighbors will purchase it, just,
That's what my collectors are telling me. Those are the people that tend to show up.
one of the local businessmen, he come by and picked me up, and we rode around the neighborhood looking at,
You went and checked them all out, I know.
yeah, and he's purchased 55 of them. Now, it is not to rehab that house for low-income housing. Actually, it's high rent in a low-income area.
I recognize that there are gentrifiers who will try to take advantage of that, and that's the way the market works. The only way for us to avoid that would be to go through the full foreclosure process and then stick it into a land bank with strictures on the property being limited to various levels of income. And I can't tell you that we could do that.
I mean, I like the idea of a land bank. But
Or you could collaborate with the nonprofits who will rebuild that and have home ownership there. Just as-
We could do that, and I have not fully vetted the capabilities of our local nonprofits.
We'll introduce you.
Thank you. I don't know that any of them, at least from what I have seen, have actually done home ownership programs. And I don't know that they've done home building programs. They have done home repair programs, which
Mission
I've heard are
Knack just
really.
completed their first one and sold it.
And Neighborhood Strong is collaborating with Mission
Interested,
Knack
yeah.
and
They're working
doing
together.
this. We-
Well, then we may have a lot more capacity to do that now that they've gotten through that first process. I don't know how many of their volunteers have pulled out their hair and run away from it now, but at least the first two.
How many
of-
hundreds of volunteers now?
Yeah, hundreds.
Hundreds of volunteers. So don't underestimate.
We need to get them to come to council also, probably.
Okay, okay.
We can figure it out.
Thank you. Anything else? Anybody? Okay, all right, thank you for that report. Okay, we'll move to C. We'll open a public hearing. Consider approval of a specific use permit for an accessory apartment for Lot 3, City Block 4, located at 504 North Mound Street. The request has been submitted by Michael and Marianne Elliott Keller. Case file SUP 2022-02. City Planner.
Thank you, Mayor. Elena Helton, City Planner. This is a 1.3 acre tract located on the east side of North Mound Street. The property is zoned single-family, R2 single-family. Surrounding zoning includes single-family, multifamily, and commercial. The existing land uses include historical single-family homes, a bed and breakfast, and then a public school right across the street. This property is also located in the Washington Square Historic District. So any new development or renovations in a historic district are required to receive a certificate of appropriateness from the Historic Landmark and Preservation Committee. So this item did go before that committee on April 4th, and they received approval for the design and building materials for the request and found that it was appropriate for the historical context of the area. The future land use plan is single-family, and this specific use permit won't change the zoning or any of the underlying uses that are permitted in that zoning district. It just grants the additional approval of the accessory dwelling being the garage apartment that's proposed. So the proposal includes a addition to an existing detached carport. It will be located on the east side of the home and the east side of the existing carport. And so this will be a 750 square feet accessory dwelling unit. It will not have any kind of separate utilities or connections. And the occupation will be restricted to immediate family members or staff that work for the home. And so this is just a zoomed in photo or image of the plan. You see there's an existing carport they're going to maintain, an open storage area, and then on the other side is the addition. These are some photos of the existing structure. So you see the carport can accommodate 2 cars. There's kind of an open lean-to area that's used for storage, and then just to the other side of that lean-to is where they're going to make the addition. So this is just a rendering of the final product, what it will look like. This is just a side view showing the garage, the open area for storage, and then the accessory living quarters. These are some photos of the home, and so this is a view standing at North Mount Street looking into the property. And so you'll notice that you won't actually be able to see the addition from the right-of-way. It'll be blocked by the home. These are some other photos, just giving you the idea of the character of the homes in the area that are also in the historic district. This is a photo of the elementary school right across the street. And so as part of our notification process, we did send, I believe it was 19 notices to property owners within the 200-foot buffer. And we also sent courtesy notices to property owners within 500 foot. We placed a zoning sign on the property. And so those are part of those notices that we do for all zone changes. And as part of the response, we did receive 3 letters of support from the neighbors, and those are in your packet as well. So staff does find that the request meets the criteria for approval, and the applicant, the Kellers, are also in attendance if the council should have any questions. And with that, I'll go ahead and conclude staff's presentation and open it up for questions from the council.
Okay, I'd like to do public comment
All right,
now, if we
absolutely.
can. Is there any public comment regarding this? Okay. All right. Council, Mr. Bolden?
Now, did you receive any comment from any of the neighbors?
Yes, so there were 3 written response letters that supported the request from the immediate neighbors. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Bellinger?
I have no question.
Okay.
I have just a couple of questions. I watched the P and Z meeting, so I tried to make myself a little bit educated on the process. I know there were questions on the rationale of who gets to live in a dwelling. Is that something we typically do for any kind of accessory? How does that apply, would the ordinance apply just on a regular single-family residential house?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for just a standalone detached single-family home, we do define a single family as no more than 2 unrelated individuals living in a home. So there's not a maximum number as far as occupancy, but the nature of that occupancy as far as the individuals and their relation to each other. For accessory dwelling units, our zoning ordinance actually outlines requirements for who can live in that unit. So our zoning ordinance actually says that if you have an accessory dwelling unit, occupants of that dwelling unit are limited to relatives of the primary residence. So who is ever living in the primary home, they have to be related to them by the 2nd degree, or property staff, so like a live-in housekeeper, nanny, so on of that nature. And so that's actually minimum standards found in the zoning ordinance. And so the SUP process that we're going through now doesn't really accommodate any variations from that. This is the opportunity for City Council to impose any additional conditions or restrictions on the development to make sure there's no adverse impact on the neighborhood. So that is something that's outlined in our zoning ordinance.
Yeah, I don't have any necessarily
Okay.
a problem against this. It's just who would enforce that? I mean, it just seems like be hard to enforce. A couple of other questions. How many houses on Mound Street and in the surrounding area have these types of garage apartment type structures?
So that's an excellent question. Multi-use garages are common for that construction type within that area. So you'll see several homes with that similar design that have a garage. This also has a attachment for accessory unit, stables, so on and so forth. So when we're looking at the map, go back to the aerial image. So all along North Mount Street, especially on the east side, you have your traditional kind of single-family homes. Several of those are actually used as bed and breakfast, and they have accessory dwelling units in the rear that are part of the original construction. And there's several grandfathered accessory apartments for similarly situated homes in the city. I don't have a count, but it's common, especially for homes of this age, to have a multi-use garage detached on the property.
So it is something that is typically applied for and granted on things that are not grandfathered in the city's historic districts to add these types of accessory dwellings.
This is the first one that I've seen come through specifically for one in a historic district. But I'm sure there's been others. Like I said, there's several that are grandfathered in. And I don't have a number for you offhand,
that's
but,
fine. Thank you.
all right, thank you.
Anything else? Anybody? Okay, I'll close the public hearing, and I would accept a motion.
So moved.
Move approval.
To approval.
Okay, move approval of C. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to D. We'll open a public hearing to consider approval of a zone change from R2 single family to R3 two family for approximately 1.5 acres, being lots 1-10 of the Burger Hill Edition, generally located at the southeast corner of Nash and Dolph Street. This request has been submitted by Rolando Rodriguez, case file ZON 2022-04, city planner.
All right, thank you. So as stated, this is 1.5 acres located at the southeast corner of Dolph Street and Nash Street. It also fronts onto Power Street. This subdivision is currently undeveloped. And the area includes a mix of zoning districts, including single-family and multifamily. It also includes a mix of residential and non-residential uses. So properties in the immediate vicinity include properties that are zoned single-family and multifamily, but also developed land uses including single-family rental property, a church, and an elementary school right across the street. And then in the surrounding area, there's additional development, including a city public works facility to the east along Power Street, and then a low-income housing apartment complex located just to the just to the west along Dolph Street. So there's a mix of residential types, residential zoning districts. Whenever we're looking at this request, we are looking at not only adjacent zoning, but adjacent land uses to look at the compatibility, and is this an appropriate mix of zoning and land uses. So the future land use plan does identify this property as single-family residential, and the comprehensive plan defines single-family residential as your traditional detached single-family homes, but that definition also includes duplexes. So duplexes are considered an appropriate land use in the single-family category in the comprehensive plan. This property also furthers a number of the goals and land use policies of the comprehensive plan, including infill and growth inwards, so proposing development where infrastructure already exists, where appropriate, providing for a mix of land uses, providing for walkable housing within public facilities like a public school, park, so on and so forth. And so staff finds that this request not only meets the future land use plan, but also meets the intent of the land use policies and goals of the comprehensive plan. Staff also finds that these projects typically will serve as a catalyst project for reinvestment in an area, and it can also encourage adjacent properties to make improvements to accommodate that additional competition. So these are some photos of the property from the street. So these are from Power Street and Dolph Street. Right now, again, it's undeveloped. There's some trees on the property, and you can see the zoning sign in the picture on the upper left-hand corner. These are photos of the elementary school right across the street on Dolph. These are photos of the single-family character along Dolph Street. These are primarily rental properties. This is a photo of the church right across the street on Nash. And this is, these are some character photos of the single-family homes along Power Street. And so part of our notices, again, we put a zoning sign on the property. We notify property owners within 500 feet. The notices that were sent out within the 200-foot buffer, we had 17, and we received one written response from one of the adjacent property owners who actually owns several rental properties on the south side of Dolph Street. So those are identified with the little purple stars. And the concern that was stated in the letter was the desire to maintain this area as single family. And so as outlined in the staff report and our presentation, staff does find that this request does meet the criteria for approval. And Mr. Rodriguez, the applicant, is also in attendance if council should have any questions. And with that, I'll conclude and ask for questions from the council.
Okay, I'd like to do public comment
All
first
right,
on this one also. Is there any public comment regarding this request? Okay. All right. Council, do you any questions, Mr. Huckabee?
figure out how to turn the microphone on.
Can I get you some water? Are you okay?
No, I'm good, just allergies.
Okay.
So, how many owner-occupied houses are in that 200-foot buffer? Do we have that total?
So if you look at this map, we have a legend on the left-hand side that's color-coded. And so it looks like there's actually three single-family owner-occupied units. The applicant did state that they've contacted them and they didn't have any concerns. We haven't heard from them, but oftentimes we are only contacted if there's concerns about the development, not necessarily if they're opposed or if they're neutral about it. But those with the yellow stars that front on Power Street, those are the owner-occupied units according to the Central Appraisal District data.
So, has there been any response or discussion regarding the proposed change with representatives from NISD? Have they had any comment? I mean, the school's right across the street. Do we have any response from them on their opinion on this?
No, they do receive the letter, but we have not been contacted by the school district.
What about, and I'm guessing you haven't heard from anyone from the church that's
No, sir.
across the well, so.
Yeah, the only contact that we've had is from the owner of the rental properties right next door.
Gotcha, thank you. Pardon my ignorance. Can you explain the 20% rule to me, just briefly?
Yes. So the zoning ordinance states that if 20% or more of the property owners within that 200-foot buffer submit a written response in opposition to the zone change request, that city council can still approve the request, but they have to do so by supermajority, so four votes. We did calculate the area, and so the number of properties owned by the owner who submitted the written request does not equal the 20%, so you're not required to meet that supermajority threshold for this item.
So because there is one person that was opposed, does he count as one owner, or does he count based on the number of parcels that he owns? Because they're not contiguous on all cases.
Yeah, so it's 20% of the land area. So whether it's one owner or 20 owners, it's the land area.
Perfect, thank you. That makes a whole lot of sense. When was the last development in this area?
Oh, my goodness.
There's some houses that, you say we're at 710
Oh,
and
okay.
714, those are new.
Yes, and there's actually been a lot of other recent development along North Sanders Street. So on North Sanders Street, there's been 4 additional single-family homes. Farther farther west along Dolph Street, we've also seen some additional infill development. So we are seeing interest in this area. Yes, sir.
Very good. One last question,
Okay.
and I'll stop. How often do zone change applicants not attend the zone hearing at P&Z? How often does that happen? I noticed that.
Yeah, not very often. You know, that particular meeting, we had one applicant who was running late because they were attending to another rental property, and Mr. Rodriguez, and I can let him speak to that if you want. Whenever our staff spoke to him, I think he simply forgot. We do remind them of the meeting, but you know, life happens. So more often than not, we have attendance for those meetings, and we emphasize the importance of that attendance. Sometimes people get delayed or they forget, or but we usually know ahead of time. It was a surprise for the applicants not to be in attendance for that last meeting.
And I know it seemed that way for P&Z. It seemed that the members of that that body they had questions that they would have liked to have asked of the applicant and could not. So.
Mr. Rodriguez, would you like to speak?
The applicant is in attendance. Mr. Rodriguez, if you have any questions, I'm going to step aside.
How y'all doing? I'm Roy Rodriguez. I'm the one that's requesting the zone change. So what kind of questions?
I just wanted,
Okay.
that was it. I just wanted to know, you know, in general,
Okay.
how the P&Z process works.
Well-
Being new here, so
I was out of town that day, so that was the only reason I wasn't here at the time. But I know how important this is. When I first looked at this property, what the pictures you saw there was a complete grown over, just bushes, trees, stuff all over the ground. Since then, I've cleaned it up, getting it mowed, keeping it clean. My first initial thoughts were to build a single-family resident, but with the cost of supplies and stuff right now, it just wasn't effective for me to try to do that. So I said, okay, let me see if I can get some duplexes in there. Because if you look at the houses that are beside there, they've got a large lot, but they're not being taken care of very well. And, you know, whether it's the individual or the landlord or whomever, I own rent property here in Nacogdoches. I think I own like 6 rent houses, a couple of commercial properties. And you try to do the best you can. But, you know, when I looked at me having the space that they were gonna have, I didn't want them to look like the houses next door. So I thought, okay, if I put a duplex there, it's gonna take up more of the space. They're still gonna have a yard the way I'm gonna develop them. And then they'll be able to hopefully maybe not, you know, get it as messed up. But if you go through there and look, there's a lot of things that could be cleaned up there, but they're not my properties. I don't have a choice in that. So, I mean, as far as what I wanna do there, my thoughts are, I'm not out to make a killing as a contractor, I make a living. I mean, if I was trying to, you know, I've got some new houses that I'm developing in different neighborhoods that I'm making the required, you know, percentage that I need to make. There, I just wanna stay local. I don't wanna travel. I wanna keep my guys here, get them to where they can go 5 minutes to work and not have to get in the van and travel to Timpson, you know, or Douglas or anywhere. It's not worth it. So, I mean, those were my thoughts here. I mean, I've heard a lot of things about taxes and stuff right now tonight. I mean, it's kind of, my mind's going crazy because I came here to talk about, you know, building. But I haven't even started working on these properties and getting them cleaned up. I'm already getting tax increases. I mean, you know, I'm spending money and they're trying to take money from me, which I understand. That's part of, you know, having properties. You pay taxes. I don't have a problem with that. But I still also understand that, you know, give me time. I mean, I took this old bank right here, old commercial bank. You're familiar with it. Nobody wanted it. I bought it. Bank's been working with me. But I mean, I've taken it. I've turned it into a sign shop. I own that sign shop. It worked for me. I take old stuff and I make it new. So to me, it's a win-win situation for me. Going there, developing that area, bringing people in, giving, you know, a house for the school, for the people to come there and go to school out there. And the neighbors, I mean, they're gonna have new, you know, places there. So it's gonna increase the value. So that should be good for the city. They're gonna wanna increase the taxes.
I appreciate you being here tonight and speaking with us.
So if y'all got any questions?
Let's see. Anything else, Ms. Huckabee?
That's it.
Ms. Fisher?
I have a question for
Yeah.
you. Your intention is to build them and then sell them, or build them and rent them out? And
My initial thoughts are to sell them. And that's what my goal is, because like I said, I turned from possibly doing one single family to 10, you know, it'd be 10 houses to 20 units. So if I'm able to get investors to come in there and maybe buy them and them maintenance them, then that would be my goal. But if not, like I said, I mean, I've got rent property. I'll just see what I can get rent for them and keep going.
thank you.
Everybody wins.
Mr. Bolden?
Thank you. I spoke to a couple of the tenants on those 5 houses, and they spoke well of you, but
No, I appreciate that, yeah.
the homeowners is basically around the 1700 block on Dodge Street, and mainly I think it's because of Oak Hill Plaza.
Right,
It's
right.
in between. So, and you said the church was in the 500 feet?
It's just right across the street from.
The church is in
The new-
is in the
the-
200 foot,
The new one?
the one that's right across on Nash.
Okay, the one that's partially built.
Um,
Been partially built for 5 or 6 years?
Yes, it's got that open
Yeah.
parking lot right there beside it, yeah,
Okay, all right, thank you.
okay.
Ms. Bellinger?
I just have one question. There was one letter that, that said they disagreed, right? And they objected. And, did anybody contact? Do we know what the objection was? It wasn't clear. It looks like he owns several properties.
The objection was, in essence, to maintain the area single family. And so the desire to, you know, maintain single family versus the duplex zoning.
And, and you learned that in follow-up or at
No,
the?
it was actually written on the letter
Oh, okay.
that was attached in the packet. Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
was attached, okay.
I didn't see it either.
Oh, is it,
It
Miss?
was a
Oh,
one page and
Right.
the comments were blank.
oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. That was our mistake. So, I have a copy of it. I can, you know, give to the, council, but essentially it lists the, that they wish for the area to be maintained as single family.
And this gentleman owns several properties here?
Yes, so he-
The whole street, I think he owns that street.
And so it just, is that rental? that
It
he
is-
has?
it is
Can't
rental.
live in all of them, but.
Yes, so those are all rental property. And, you know, I think I showed you guys some images. Those are just some images. Those are some of the actual homes that,
Yeah, I know the first 5 on that corner from Sanders is rental property for that person.
it is.
They're on the other side also, because I've seen his
Yeah.
truck,
Yeah.
his maintenance man or whoever they are, working on the houses.
I feel bad not to have seen his comments, so.
Well,
mean, I
and
know you- I
I,
know
like I
we
said,
all
I
make
apologize. I have a copy here. I can just give to you, and I can read it verbatim for the record if you like, and then I'll give it to you. So essentially, do what's the request? Oh, you know what? You're right. So the comment was blank, but we did call them, and they stated that they were opposed to a single family, so I apologize for the misunderstanding. So this is a copy of the form. The comment section is blank, but we did follow up with them, and their comment was they don't want duplex, they want it to stay single family. So, sorry for the confusion.
That's right. I was just curious.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. You
Thank y'all
be
very
seated.
much, appreciate y'all.
And I'll close the public hearing. And do I have a motion on D?
Make a motion to approve agenda item D.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Have a second, all right. Any further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. All right. We'll move to E.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you. Open a public hearing, consider approval of a zone change from PD, Plan Development District, to R4 multifamily for approximately 3 acres, being lots 5 and 6, Block 4 of the Creek Bend subdivision, Unit 2, generally located at the southeast corner of South 16 Drive and Creek Bend Boulevard. This request has been submitted by Mario Wesley, case file ZON 2022-03. Please note that at a regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission held on May 9th, 2022, the commission voted unanimously to postpone the public hearing to the regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission on June 13th, 2022. So I assume for us it will be postponed as well?
Yes, we're requesting council not to take action until we can continue that public hearing with Planning and Zoning Commission in June.
Okay.
Do you need a motion to that effect?
Yes, please.
With that, I'll close the public hearing. Yes, please, thank you.
I move to postpone consideration of this till after the Planning and Zoning Commission meets on it.
Have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Fisher. Any discussion?
And actually, we do need to postpone it to a specific date. And so this is going to the Planning and Zoning Commission on June 13th. And so the following city council meeting, I believe, would be, let's see, June 23rd? No, hold on. 21st, June 21st.
I move that we
amend that?
amend the motion
Okay.
to reflect the date.
Okay.
I second
Ms.
the,
House.
I second that.
Okay, any further discussion?
We have to vote on the amendment.
Okay. And the motion?
First, you have to vote on the amendment.
Okay, vote on the amendment. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay. Those in favor of the motion
As amended.
as amended.
Aye.
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 Same sign. All right.
All right, thank you.
We'll finish there and we'll move to 8 and we'll adjourn to executive session at 6:53, May 17th. Oh, sorry, we'll do. Executive sessions are for the city council, to receive information, deliberate on matters specified in subchapter D of the Texas Open Meeting Act. Council may reconvene in open session to vote on the matter. This personnel matters pursuant to Texas Government Code, Section 551.074, deliberations regarding the employment of public officer or employee. The subject of this executive session is to report on negotiations for a separation agreement with the chief of police.
And we'll take a 5-minute break
Take a
on the
5-minute
break.
break, then on to
Please.
executive session. From executive session at 8:09 on May 17th, 2022. And we do have one speaker that was part of our open forum that we did earlier. Dr. Clark? Yes, sir.
My name is Bill Clark. I live at 2703 North Pecan. And 2 weeks, I am a member of the CERT volunteer team with the department, with the police department. And 2 weeks ago, we were told that Chief Seavey was on administrative leave. And I assumed it was because of the health situation. There were no details given. I just knew he had had some heart problems. And then, about a week later, I began to hear some rumors that that was different. So I called Amelia and asked her, can you speak to me about the Seavey situation? And she said, no, I cannot. I can't do that. And I respected that. But now I realize that there's something more serious than health problems. And I just want to tell you that I've known Chief Seavey ever since he first came here, the first day he got here. And as a member of the CERT team, he and Sergeant Sal actually started that here in Nacogdoches. And since I've known him, he's done nothing but bend over backwards to improve the city of Nacogdoches, not only with the police department, but with the neighborhoods all around. He has really championed the Neighborhood Watch program, which I'm one of the captains of one of the neighborhoods. And I am really sad if I know what's going to happen, happens. I think that if he is to be relieved from his duty for some reason, I don't know what the reason is, if there's a conflict between he and the city manager or attorneys or whatever, I think they're the ones that need to be packing their suitcases, not Jim. I've never known him to be a confrontational man. All I know is he's devoutly religious, and I applaud his work that he's done here. And if he is to be relieved, I think you're making a serious mistake. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Clark.
Okay, is there a motion regarding the executive session?
Yes, I'd like to move that we authorize the city manager to negotiate a separation agreement with the chief of police for 6 months' salary and an amount to cover COBRA health insurance for him and his spouse for 6 months.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
I also would like to thank Chief Seavey for his 16 years of service to the city of Nacogdoches.
Thank you. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, there is one more matter to take up, and that is consent agenda item 6A. Consider approval of minutes from May 3rd, 2022, regular meeting. Do I have a motion for approval of that?
So move.
Move, Ms. Fisher, thank you. Do you have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bolden. Any further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. All right, we're adjourned.